Hello and welcome back to Off Track Podcast with me, Dave Neal. We're back from a busy weekend at Brands Hatch. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who joined us at the Ixon BSB Fan Zone stage over the weekend. We had some great guests up on stage and the crowd was absolutely superb. So if you were one of them, thank you so very much for coming along. My guest this week currently lies third overall in the Bennett's British Superbike Championship with 2/3, 2 seconds and a win to his name. His most successful BSB season so far. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Cheshire Mouldings Ducati's Rory Skinner. Enjoy.
Rory, finally we've got you on Off Track. I can't believe that we've never done a full and proper show together. So mate, thank you.
No, thank you for having me, Dave.
It's a pleasure. We're here at Brands Hatch, round 5. Seems like it's been forever this season. It's August next week. And all of a sudden we're just at round 5. It's been mental. Congratulations on Knockhill. A 3-2-1.
Thank you.
We'll come to that a little bit later on in the programme, but let's cover off last year first. It's been a while since you've done a podcast, so we'll cover that side off. That was a tough year coming back to BSB, and I think that's with a capital T. I don't think it could have been much harder for you.
Character building.
Straight off the back of Moto2, that was character. Your character should be huge this year because you had a character building year in Moto2, a character building year in BSB last year. And now we're seeing the Rory Skinner of 2022, which is great to see you back. But talk us through last year and from the pilot seat. It was far from easy.
Far from easy, but at the same time, there was a lot of positives to take out of it. You know, Dave, it was enjoyable. Coming back to BSB, my first season on the BMW, my first year with the Taj Racing guys, and in all honesty, I had some really good moments last year. When I look back on it, I don't look too much at the bad stuff now. I kind of look at the stuff that I enjoyed through it. And, you know, it was always going to be tough coming back to BSB after a season away. But, you know, we came back into it and we were kind of at the front straight away on a bike that was totally new to me. And a lot of my team, I brought my crew chief from Moto2, Stuart Shenton. And I brought an electronics engineer over from Moto2 as well, and Matt Last. So, you know, my two main guys in the garage were totally new to BSB. They were totally new to Superbikes. They were new to Motec and BMWs and everything. So we were starting from scratch. You know, we were left with no previous setup data on the team. It was some weird things had went on there, and it was kind of starting from scratch, almost like what we had with the Ducati this year. So yeah, when we got into it and we were kind of on the pace straight away, I was quite happy and I felt quite comfortable. And then obviously 2024 started becoming 2024, and it bit me a few times, but you know, I look back on it, I was only a BMW race winner last season, and I felt like we could have challenged for a lot more podiums had I not broken my leg.
No, that was a difficult start. And the issue that you had at Alton Park, which then you kind of put that to bed with the win at Knockhill, which was a great display at Knockhill. It's a great place for you. We know that. But then we'll come on to that this year because there's other things that have happened that really made me smile this year. But then, yeah, the broken leg at Snetterton, which set you back, which, again, it was that lack of bum in seat time, wasn't it? That was the thing. So each time you were coming back, you're coming back from injury, you're coming back from ringing your bell, and there was just no consistency for you as a rider.
Yeah, the biggest thing after Snetterton, I mean, I snapped my tib and fib in 2 places on each of them. So, you know, it was a fairly big injury, and me being me, I just thought I'll be all right. Couple of weeks in the hyperbaric chamber. It's got a rod in it now. It'll be strong enough to go. And I came back to Thruxton probably a little bit too early, but I think I needed to do that for my own mind to let myself know that it was too early. And then really just every point after that, it was just never strong enough. I was trying to do things in the bike that I just couldn't do physically because I just wasn't quite strong enough. My leg wasn't stable enough to do what I was asking it to do. And in BSB, it's so tight anyway, even when you're at the top of your game, that when you're not, like I feel like I was maybe at 70-80% last year, and it just wasn't quite working. And I was beating myself up. I was trying to push in other places, and usually when you push into places you're already strong, it ends up in more mistakes, and that's just kind of what happened. So it was tough when I came back from it, and really after the Snetterton incident, I don't think I was ever really back to being strong or fit, but I felt like if we were staying on BMW for this season, which there was a strong possibility that we were at that time, that I wanted to have some backup data. I wanted to have something that we could come to on the tracks this year and know where the bike was at. So, you know, there was reason to the madness, but it was tough times looking back on it now.
One thing he always had through that time was support from Philip and from the team. which they weren't in a rush to put anybody else on the bike. Everything was as it should be. And they've repaid that faith in you as well by continuing again this year. So when you're sat at home and you're recovering from injury, it's always the way in BSB. You don't want to see anybody else on your bike. Look at what Glenn's doing at the minute. Now he's seeing Scott on his bike. He's like, his recovery has all of a sudden gone, woof. He's ramping it up because you don't want to see anybody on your bike. But it is hard, sat at home, nursing an injury of that magnitude, to then think, I need to come back. I need to prove to myself. And that's the character building side, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much seeing someone else on my bike, because I knew as soon as I was fit, I'd be back on it. And, you know, as you said, I had so much support from the boys at Taj Racing and Steve and Philip and all of my crew in the garage, that they knew that I would come back. They saw the Thruxton, that, you know, I'm not just I'm not just like a prima donna. I won't ride when I'm fully fit. Like, I will give it a go. I'll grit my teeth and I'll get on with it. And, you know, Thruxton, I could feel the bone moving about. That's what made me stop. I came through the left-hander before the fast right before church. I'm not too clued up on Thruxton corner names. After the first complex, the fast left, and it spun. It put all my weight through my right leg, which was the one that was broken, and I just felt everything go, huh. And at that point I thought, yeah, I better just calm this down.
We'll park this.
Yeah, maybe just stop this now. So yeah, it was, I never had anything but support from the team. I knew that I didn't have to rush to make a comeback, but for me, I'm that kind of person who wants to be there. I love riding bikes. I love motorbikes, and it's what I want to do. There's nothing worse than sitting at home, seeing the racing happening and me not even being there. So it was tough going for me, but as you said, I had so much kind of support from the team that it made me know that the recovery, I just needed to take as long as I needed to take. But equally, I kept thinking I didn't need to take as long as I was taking. So yeah, it was like yin and yang almost.
The team side of things, I love the team side of things for you, because the difficulty that you had in Moto2, that's been documented elsewhere. So we don't need to go over that. We coming from FS3 with Darren and Nigel in the family for 2021, 2022, to go there and then to come back here to another team that gives you that family feeling. It's super important to have that family bond around, but bringing Stewie and bringing Matt with you as well. There really is, it's everything is there for you for this team.
Oh, for sure. I mean, being able to come to Taj Racing, and one of the things I wanted to say to Philip is, well, that I said to Philip was that I wanted to bring my own kind of people with me. And, you know, for me, Stuart was something that I had no kind of, I'm either bringing Stuart or I'm not coming kind of thing. I wanted to bring him with me. I had such a good relationship, even though I only started working with him in Moto2.
Yeah.
He's a man of many, many wonders, I would say. You know, Stuart's been there and done it in every era there's almost been. So, you know, I knew that him coming to Superbikes would be his first time working on Superbikes, but he's worked on MotoGP and, you know, on Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, even in the early days. And, you know, I knew that it probably wouldn't be too much of a challenge for him to come and learn the Superbikes. So yeah, bringing Stuart with me was a first and foremost. I had to have him, and at that point I knew that I'd be quite comfortable in my team. Obviously Moto2 was tough for me, but I had quite a strong kind of network in Stuart and my data engineer Brian, my two mechanics in the garage, and then Hopper as well. You know, that was our little close-knit group that we had. And, you know, it was almost us against the world, I feel, in Moto2. It was, everything was kind of put against us, even internally in the team. But yeah, I knew that if I came to BSB in a little, as you said, family team, and bringing the people that I wanted to work with, I knew it would be a good combination.
It shouldn't be underestimated, the talent and the knowledge that Stuart Shenton brings to that garage. And it was his dad that looked after Stan, that looked after Mick Grant all those years ago. And then Stewie came into the paddock as well. He's worked with Kevin Schwantz. There's very few people he hasn't worked with. So to have that data mine to tap into at this stage of your career, for me, I think is just one of the most perfect setups you could have.
Oh, for sure. 100%. You know, Stuart's worked with Cort Ballington, Freddie Spencer, Wayne Gardner, Kevin Schwantz, John Hopkins, just to name a few. You know, like that's just the kind of the main ones out of that era. And, you know, for me to have Stuart in my corner is just unbelievable. You know, I feel like I live in an era not current. And, you know, I love my two strokes and I love things like that. And I think at the beginning, Stuart thought it was just a little bit like I was kind of just trying to act like I knew stuff about the old bikes. And, you know, I wasn't. I was just actually had an interest. I was asking him loads of questions about it. And then he started to realise now that is my personality. That's what I'm like. And for me to work with somebody on videos that I've seen in videos of growing up, you know, watching all the old classic 500 stuff and seeing Stuart in all the DVDs and stuff, and it's like, no, working with him now, he's my crew chief, and for me, it's just a cool thing to have as well. But as you said, to have his knowledge in the garage is just, you know, second to none. It's the best thing I could ever ask for.
The two-stroke side, you have your, is it the TZ250?
TZ, yeah.
So you got a TZ250, and I remember last year you were chatting to a friend of mine, Steve Paul, about RD350s, and Steve was just looking at you going like, how at your age do you know this information? He was absolutely blown away by it.
That's just from my dad. You know, my dad, this is another thing as well, we're not even touched on it yet. My dad has just been like, he's been bike mad since he was 12 years old. He got his first motorcycle at 12, and as soon as he got his first one, he just started saving up for his next one. And I think Dad will probably correct me on this if I'm wrong. I think he had 28 RDs and LCs in the period of being 17 to 19 years old. He just bought them, built them, sold them. And then at the end of that, he bought a Z1000. So, you know, my dad is mad for like the old Yamaha two-strokes. You know, that's what he loves. And I've kind of grown up in the workshop around that. You know, we've got Skinner Motorcycles, a family business. I worked in there when I left school for 3 years, and you know, that's just how it is. But I've grown up in a workshop. I've grown up around motorbikes, and it just rubs off on you, I suppose.
What is it that fascinates you about the two-strokes? We'll talk about that side for it now, because from me as a teenager, when all my mates were on RGV 250s, TZR 250s and KR1Ss, all of those, and Aprilia RS 250s, what fascinates you about them versus the bikes that we have today?
I don't know. It's just that, like, I grew up racing two-strokes. I was probably one of the very last of the you know, the breed coming through that raced them. I was probably almost on the cusp of being able to go four-stroke, but my dad kept me on two-strokes because he thought it'd make me a better rider. So, you know, I grew up on mini motos, two-stroke mini motos, the Metrikit 50s and 70s. My dad built me an 80, a Herbie it was called. It was a Honda GP125 chassis with a Derby 50 engine that he converted into an 80. I then had a GP125. I raced Aprilia Super Teens. So the first time I actually raced a four-stroke properly was in the Morawaki Cup in 2014, but for a season was a Red Bull Rookies in 2015. So, you know, for me, I spent the entirety of my junior career racing two-strokes. So I've always had an interest in them. I've always been around them, and I don't know, I just feel like it's really pure form of racing, and it's just, you know, something that I always enjoy. And Dad having bikes like that, you know, he raced 250 Cup in Scotland, a 250 Challenge, Aprilias. And, you know, he always had two-strokes on the go. So I always kind of, wasn't even that I shown an interest in it. I was just always around them, and it just became normal to me.
The age of the bigger bulk of our listeners, 65% of our listeners are sat back at this point in time going, that's a boy. He knows what he's on with, because we're all of that age, for that era of two-stroke racing. And one of the coolest things that you did last year with the two-stroke was the Monster Energy Day at Silverstone. Everybody else turns up on these big flash bikes, and they're all these fancy, and there's Rory on his TZ250 and
TZ250, my block of jets.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, this'll do. Thanks very much. But you can fettle it yourself. You can put everything together yourself. Everything's there. You can run it. You don't need. You can, but you don't need anybody there to run it with you. But it created more of a stir, I think, you having the 250 there than any other of the bikes that were available.
It was just a bit different, I think. And in all honesty, it was the only bike I had at that point. The team had my practice bike back, giving it a freshen up, because I'd had it all winter in Spain, did a fair amount of miles on it. So I didn't actually have anything else to ride. And I thought, well, the TZ will maybe race some eyebrows. So as much as it probably didn't do it many favours getting thrashed around Silverstone Grand Prix circuit all day long, flat out on the stops, it was enjoyable, and it was good fun. It was, I've got loads of videos from it, and as you said, it was different at the Monster Day. It raised a lot of eyebrows, and I think everybody was quite happy to smell a bit of 747 and some avgas in the pit lane. It's not the R30 that everybody goes on about, but hey, you can't get that anymore. It's still Caster, so it still smells good.
That's the nostalgia thing, isn't it? I still remember being at Cadwell in the late 70s, early 80s, and that blue haze as everybody sets off. But I mean, what was that as being a Monster Energy athlete? And being invited to a day like that with the Valentino and all of the Monster Energy athletes that were there. And that's kind of a nod in your direction as well, isn't it? It's like, do you know what? You deserve to be there.
It was cool being there. You know, a lot of the guys who were there, like your Fabio Di Giannantonios, I think Bezzecchi was there. I've raced with these guys in Rookies and CEV. There was quite a few of them that, you know, I've kind of grown up with and I've crossed paths with in the past. And it was cool to see them again. And I think they were like, "Oh, what you riding? What you riding?" And I told them I was on the 250, and they were like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And these guys are in MotoGP now, and it's cool to kind of be back riding with them. And it's I was kind of gutted it wasn't on a big bike, because it would have been quite cool to spin some laps with them again. But hey, it was good to see some familiar faces, and obviously a huge thanks to Monster Energy for putting on the day, because it was my first season as a Monster athlete, and to be one of their, I would say probably one of their coolest events yet for the road race and motorcycle side. It was very grateful to have been there.
I think it's, from a fan's point of view, when you look back at the Red Bull rookies, and the same when I was working with Jordan Weaving in 2013, when you look back through the entry list, he was racing against Jorge Martin, he was racing against Toprak, and the same for yourself against Bez and against Fabio. They've all come through the same path. They've just gone on a different journey.
Yeah, it's if you look at it, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the Grand Prix paddock have either come from the Junior GP Championship, the CV at the time when I went into it, or Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup, and that's what it was. And that's why it's called the Road to MotoGP. That's what brings on the talent, and sometimes there's got to be a bit of money involved to get you through to that next step, and obviously having the right passport at times can help you. But it's for me, looking back on it, I didn't quite get there at that time, but to look back on it now and see all the people I raced with, Ralph Fernandez, and God, there's so many of them, it's hard for me to kind of like remember most of the grid, to be honest. Most of the Moto2 grid now, or even a handful of the MotoGP grid as well. Ayogura, I battled with him in Jerez and Red Bull Rookies for the race win. It was looking back on it, it's crazy to kind of just like see where everybody's gone from the people I was racing with. And yeah, sometimes it's nice to look back on it. Sometimes it can be a bit frustrating because, you're not there now, but everything happens for a reason. And, I believe in what's for you won't go by you. And I'm happy with where I am right now. And I can look back and know I was happy with everything that I did back then.
It's part of the makeup that makes you the rider that you are now. When you speak to people in the paddock and you hear in interviews that who's looking at the future of BSB, and this isn't blowing smoke, this is quoting what Glenn Irwin said. Glenn said, "You are one of the most naturally talented riders in BSB." And when we spoke to Steve Rogers about your generation, yourself, Storm, Charlie, Max, that 22, 23, 24 age group that are the future of BSB, Steve picked you out. He's like, Rory, he's one that if I could work with him in the future, that's the rider that I would work with. And I think we need to put that out there to our viewers and listeners, because that's the regard in which you're held in the paddock.
It's like, I've kind of, it's a nice feeling to.
You weren't expecting that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. It's nice to hear stuff like that, and it's very grateful to have those those words from Steve, because he's been there and done it. He's won a lot of titles in the past, so it's to have those words from Steve. It's very kind of him, and as you were saying, Max, Charlie, myself, maybe not so much Storm. We all grew up racing together in our younger years, especially with mini motos and metro kits, and then later on I started racing with Storm in British Talent Cup. So that kind of generation, a lot of us have grown up together since we were like 7 or 8 years old, and I was just it was Kyle and Brad that were in Fab Racing just in front of me, and it was almost like a little kind of community. Fraser Rogers was just in front of them, and then you look at the Racing Steps ladder too. Racing Steps Foundation was something that was on the go, and they had John McPhee, Wayne Ryan, Fraser Rogers, Kyle Ride, and it was it was another thing that helped British riders. And unfortunately, there's just not so much for that anymore. Now, Dorna obviously have the British Talent Cup. Michael Laverty's doing a good chunk to try and help bring British talent through, which is nice. But it's kind of all these guys who are kind of shifting towards the front end at my kind of age gap. We've all raced together since we were kids. It's just like we've kind of all just come through the ranks together. It's cool.
You mentioned Wayne Ryan. There was a talent that fell by the wayside. That he's super talented rider, but like you say, you have opportunity, and sometimes if the finance isn't there to back it up, occasionally we've probably lost more potential Marc Marquez's and Rory Skinners and Max Cooks than we've found, because the financial side is so tough and it's not getting any easier.
For sure. And it's not just the financial side. You can have all the finance in the world, but if the stars just don't quite align and you're not in the right place at the right time, it just won't work out. And I feel like I've kind of been in that situation once or twice. I don't want to cry wolf, it's how life goes. But it was, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. Your age has got to be in the right kind of the right gap, and your passport's got to be in the right time frame, and there's so much that goes into it in a political sense as well, going towards Grand Prix, that it's just it's hard. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's plain sailing, and other times it's an upwards struggle.
It's a battle.
Yes.
We one of the comments, and I will give him a name check for this. Andrew Wolverton in one of the comments, and it might have been on the Sam Lowe's chat we did at World Superbikes. He said, "You're not trotting the planets have to align cliche out again, are you?" But it's actually true. In motorcycle racing, everything has to line up. It's not a cliche. It's absolutely true.
I know. I wish we didn't have to use all these phrases that get used over and over and over again, but there is a reason why they do, because you don't know what's going to happen. You're never safe in what you're in. You've always got to strive to improve, and even then, sometimes it looks like all the doors are opening, and then all of a sudden the last one just gets slammed shut in your face. So this being able to bounce back from that and being able to move forward, and I think that's what us British riders seem to do probably better than most, because we're not given it easy. We're not given the easy route through, and it's something that you do have to work for. And every British rider that's at the front end of their sport is a gritty character. They've worked hard. They've had the highs. They've had the lows, and they've been made to work for it. And they've been knocked down. They've been at rock bottom, and they've had to climb back up from it multiple times in most cases. So yeah, usually when you're there, you want it even more.
It is. It's get knocked down 5 times, get up 6.
Yes, exactly.
You can't not. But bringing us to 2025 now, when at the end of last year, the team made the decision to move to the Ducati. It's a move that has already proved dividends, because already, even if the end of the season for everybody was the end of this weekend, this is your most successful BSB season to date. And this is only round 5.
Yeah.
Which, to see how you gelled with the team and with the Ducati, the results speak for themselves. And what was the thought process moving to the Ducati, and what were your first experiences of it?
In terms of the move, I didn't really have a whole lot of kind of say in it. Philip asked me if I'd like to ride the Ducati. He asked me what my thoughts were staying with the BMW. And in all honesty, I was quite happy to stay with the BMW. I felt like we did when I was fit last year, I could be competitive. And I feel like having an off season of testing on it, because the deal got sorted out so late for 2024 with what happened in Moto2, that we didn't get a lot of time to ride it. I don't think I actually signed my contract until like end of December, January time, which by that point we couldn't go to Spain and test. So it was a last minute thing with the BMW, and we were very much kind of just trying to get everything done in a short space of time with Spanish testing. But I felt like we could have done a decent job with the BMW come this season with a winter under our belt. But then with the Ducati, I knew that it was potentially going to be a step up. Obviously seeing what what Glenn does on it, what Christian had been doing on it at that point, and just the general kind of looking at Ducati in any kind of championship, they were never out of the top 5, whether that be Moto America, BSB, World Superbikes. There was always a Ducati at the front. So for me, going to Ducati was also a move I would be happy to make. As I said, with the BMW, we had nearly no data going into the start of the season with it. So I wasn't really concerned about going into the year blind with the Ducati, because we'd done it prior with the BMW. And yeah, I was excited with either option. But when Philip said we were going with the Ducati, deep down I felt like that was probably the right move to make. And yeah, at that point I was excited to swing my leg over a V4. It was a configuration of engine I'd never rode before. Any big bike I'd ridden was an inline, so I was excited to try something new, to try something different. I'd heard, obviously, Glenn spouting out that it was going to be like this and it was going to be like that, but I went into it just like an open mindset and just kind of got on with it myself and made my own opinions of it. And in all honesty, I had John and Jackie from Cheshire Mouldings kindly let me use their V4R over the winter, and yeah, I honestly just loved it straight away. It was almost love at first sight. It was just so enjoyable, so much fun, and I just had a smile on my face almost the entirety of the winter just riding that Ducati.
How did it? Because you wore a groove in a lot of tracks in Spain over the winter with that V4R. But when you look at some aspects and you go, well, if you're riding a production R1 versus a race R1 and a production V4R versus a race, were there characteristics that you could get used to before you got on the race bike? Or was it just getting used to a Ducati and a V4?
I never try and tell myself that a practice bike is going to feel like a race bike. I've ridden, that's the third Superbike I've ridden now with a Ducati. I know the difference between a stalker and a superbike. I know that they're not really comparable, and all you can kind of do with them is get bike fit. You know, you can ride them, you can understand somewhat the genetics of the bike and how it wants to be ridden. But then jumping on the superbike is going to be completely different. And then, you know, for me going into the start of the season, this is where things got difficult. We ran into some electrical problems with the superbike at Navarra, and I was kind of a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. Everybody told me the Ducati was going to be a rocket ship, and at this point we were struggling to pass stock thousands, and it was difficult. We did struggle at the first part, and we'd come off such a positive off season, and me riding out in Spain, I felt so good. And then we went into testing, and I felt like I was riding even better again. I loved the chassis of the bike, and I loved riding it. We just didn't seem to have any go, and it taken us until Open Park to actually figure out what it was. And it was in the deepest, darkest depths of Motec that something had just tweaked. Just a voltage had spiked, and it had reset things, and it was showing everything was fine on the data, but we knew we had a power problem. And I think we found about 75 to 80 horsepower from Donington Park test to Oulton Park test. And believe me, I knew about it at Oulton Park when Matt sent me out for the first time with what was full power. Oh man, I about taken off going into Island Bend over those bumps. It was crazy. And at that point, that's when I realised how fast the Ducati was. And yeah, at that point, the Oulton Park test, that's when testing for us really started.
But you'd done so well up to that point anyway with the there's part of it that makes you think maybe it kind of did you a little favour to get you kind of used to the Ducati Superbike and not having full power. You were still 8th. Yeah, you're riding it.
Well, the thing is we found the power and it completely changed the chassis. So anything we worked on with the chassis, we then had to basically reevaluate the entire thing. And we had 2 days at Oulton Park test to basically try and find a start setting with the bike, which at Oulton Park, usually you go to Oulton Park knowing your bike and you ride your bike to the limit you feel around Oulton Park, rather than trying to ride the bike to the limit at Oulton Park, if you know what I mean. It's a weird thing to get your head around. Oulton Park is you got to be so smooth and so precise that you know your bike inside out and you ride it to the track. Whereas for me, I didn't know my bike inside out, so I was trying to understand my bike whilst trying to ride to the limit of the track. And it was just
all the places.
It was damage limitation, if anything, because obviously Oulton Park to me in the past probably hasn't been the kindest. And it was one of the first weekends, I think, in a good few years I've left Oulton Park not in hospital. So it was, to come out with a handful of points, and I think a few top 10s as well. I think it was, a successful enough weekend, to be honest.
To put a positive spin on that, you have podiumed at Oulton Park before, though, in Kawasaki. So we'll put a positive spin on that.
I think that was the last time I left Oulton Park not in hospital. So, yeah.
First round of 2022, I think.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough to be stood out the front of the garage when you came back in after that first run at Oulton Park, and your eyes were on stalks. It was like you just sat there and went like, wow.
I think I wanted my own bike back, to be honest. I was like, right, yeah, we just need to take a load of power out of this again.
Boys.
Literally. But it was at that point, and you kind of knew what we were working with, and it was, okay, this is the introduction I was needing to Ducati about a month and a half ago. But, you know, fair play to the guys. When we had that problem at Navarra, they worked relentlessly. They worked so flat out, and I've never seen Matt so stressed out. Stuart as well. You know, they were like, we'd had good results in the dyno before we went to Spain, and it was when we were at Navarra, literally before the first exit, that the channel went down, and that's what caused the spike. It was through no fault of the guys. They had it sorted before we went, and it was just a glitch in the system, which is no fault of anybody's, and it just sent us looking for about 3 or 4 days worth of testing, or maybe even more actually, 4 or 5 days worth of testing. That it was just almost not irrelevant, but there wasn't a lot to get out of them.
You could sense a frustration after Donington because you put it out on the socials like, we just need more ponies. And you sat there like, another Ducati? Where are they?
Well, they was getting all the comments saying, oh, you're the first person I've heard to kind of say that a Ducati needs more power. And I wouldn't lie about it. You know, I was struggling. We were struggling with power. And then, when we go and find like 75 horsepower, that's a fair chunk of power, I can tell you that.
That's a bit more than a Moto3 bike.
Fair chunk more than
Moto3. They're about 60 horsepower, 55.
Yeah, it's basically like putting a standard sport bike on top of what you've got. So it wasn't slow in the first place. Like we could kind of hang with stock thousands, but then putting another sport bike kind of in terms of power on top of that, it definitely livened things up a bit.
How have you has there been more adjusting for you to the bike or the bike to you for your style on a superbike?
I would say in terms of how we ride it, I think it's got to be, I've got to find something and the bike's got to find something. You know, it's very much an equal thing. You know, I know my riding, certainly in the beginning, wasn't going to be perfect for the Ducati. So I had to make sure that I was open to changing and adapt to my riding style. And that's something I tried a lot in Spain. You know, I just rode a standard road bike, still had the horn on it, it was standard fork, standard shock, everything, standard gearing, foot pegs, literally everything was stock on that bike, apart from the bodywork, because Philip didn't want to have to replace it if something went wrong. So it was like, I understand how to try and adapt to a bike with a change in track conditions and with the setup not being quite right. So that's something I worked on over the winter, because that is something you can do with a practice bike. It's never going to be perfect. There's no point in chasing it to be perfect because it's not what you're going to ride. So when it came into the season and the bike maybe wasn't quite right, I was aware of trying to shift my body weight around and try and change the way that I was riding with my technique to help the bike. But then equally, there's a point where you start going around in circles and you need to maybe change the bike a little bit to help what you're feeling. So we don't never rush into anything. Stuart's very good with that. He's very good at keeping everything calm, cool, collected. He'll make a change when a change is needed. But when we don't need to make a change, he will straight up tell me that I need to do this differently or I need to do this differently, which I respect.
That's a fascinating dynamic because you don't often get that in a garage. There's one thing about the Cheshire Mouldings Ducati garage, there's no blame game going on. You've all put it with the experience of Steve Plater, with the experience of Philip, the experience of Stewie and Matt and the team around you and Lee. Everybody's pulling in the same direction and everybody's got a part to play, including the rider, because you know at this point you're not the finished article. I don't think you ever are as a motorcycle racer. There's always development to be had.
I don't think you can ever look at yourself as a finished article. There's always room to improve.
And that's what's coming now with the Ducati, and we're seeing that with the results. So after that first weekend at Alton Park, like you say, damage limitation, not at this point in time your favourite place, but we get to go back there later in the year. So maybe it will become your favourite place again after Knockhill. And to take that then to Donington Park, that's where I think most of the paddock and most of the fans went, this is good. This is nice to have Rory back. Consistent top, I think in the last 9 races, I think you apart from the unfortunate DNF in race 1 at Snet, your lowest finishing position is 5th. And you've had 5 podiums and a win in that point as well. So it's not a bad return on a bike that's new to you and the team so far.
Yeah, I would say we're getting there with it. You know, that's top 5 is our goal. I say it, you know, every weekend. We want to be in the top 5, and if podiums present themselves, we'll take them. It's a long season, 33 races across the course of the year, and the showdown is kind of where things get real with the big points gap. So if we can be in the top 5, then, you know, it's a good place to be. It's in with a mix for the kind of showdown towards the end of the year. And yeah, that's kind of what we work towards every weekend. We're coming to every track. It's new for us. Donington was basically new for us because the testing we did there was, as I said, almost irrelevant. Knockhill, we did a 2-day test there. Really just a day test there with the bike. And, you know, that was kind of, we came into there, probably the first place we came in there with a little bit of background data.
Yeah.
Snetterton was a new track for us with the bike. Brands Hatch here is going to be a new track for us with the bike. And I feel like we're starting to just understand it. We know where the bike should be, kind of in a base, and from there we're working with it. And as you said, top 5s, it's kind of where we are. It's what we're starting to build on. And for me, it's good. It's a strong kind of place to be. You know, it's understanding the bike, it's being consistent, and for me, consistency is key.
When we did the season preview with Steve Day, we were kind of predicting where through the season that you would be on the new bike, as we looked at each individual rider. And we both said, well, because of the way that the season's structured, by the time we get to Brands Hatch, they should be in podium contention, coming off the back of Knockhill and then coming to Brands, but you've smashed that out of the water. And the great thing about that is, for me, we all know you do well at Knockhill. It's your backyard. You know, you got your first podiums there, you got a win there last year, and you think your first ever BSB podiums were at Knockhill with FS3.
Correct.
Thank you to Darren and to Nigel. We're using their office as usual. But to get the podium at Donington, 2 podiums at Snetterton, the Knockhill thing, yes, that was great on a 3-2-1, but you'd already stood on the podium before you got there. And for me, to show your progress, that was vital. So people can't go, yeah, but it's Knockhill, isn't it? Yeah, but no, it's not.
Yeah, for me,
that's just a culmination of the last 3 rounds.
Exactly. Yeah, for me to get a podium at Donington and be in the front row and pole at Donington, under lap record, and then
he got the lap record for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, and then to go to Snetterton and to be on the front row again in qualifying, and then in later on in the weekend as well, and to be on the podium. For me, it was just like a step forward for us. You know, we made that step at Donington. It kind of told me that I do have the potential to be back on the BSB podium again. It was a long time since, it felt like an eternity since the win at Knockhill last year, since I've been on the podium. And to unlock that podium at Donington was nice. And then to go to Snetterton and to do it again was even nicer. And then it almost created a lot of expectation for Knockhill, because as you said, everybody expects me to kind of be on the podium at Knockhill. It is my back garden. I've been there since I was 6 months. I've been going there since I was 6 months old, and my dad racing, and yeah, I know everybody there. Everybody there knows me. And it's like, yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself there to perform, but I knew off the back of the 2 podiums that we did have a good chance. Everybody was wanting a repeat of the win. And in all honesty, I think wet or dry, we could have had a good go at it.
Yeah.
I think we learned a lot in race 1. We tried some stuff. Well, we had some stuff in line to try with the setup going into race 2 and race 3. And yeah, even though it was wet in race 2 and race 3, I was still happy with the performances we did. Obviously, the win was fantastic, and to go 3-2-1 over the weekend was great, to be honest. And yeah, it was just nice to have kind of felt like myself again, and you know, to have strung 3 rounds together where we've been consistent and been at the front end every single race of every weekend. It's been really nice. It's been nice for me, for a mental side of things, to know that I can be back up there with Brad and Kyle again.
That was where I was going to go with it next, because when you came into the championship 2021, you were the youngest rider ever to make it into the showdown. 2022, there's some great results through there. And I was looking back through TSL, because I remember the Cadwell weekend of 2022. You were sat on pole until Brad's sector 3. But that time that you did, I had to write it down because I couldn't remember, is that you did a 25.7. That would have put you on pole by 0.2 last year in BSB at Cadwell Park. So we know that those who know in the paddock and the fans that are out there, they know you can ride a bike. They know what you're capable of. But we've said it before on the show. You need 3 seasons in BSB to be pretty much up at the sharp end. That season 3 is always a difficult one. For me, this is season 3 for you, because last season there was no consistency there because of injury. You couldn't get the run of consistency with results. So for me, just from a personal point of view, this is your year 3. This is the point now where you go, I am a British Superbike rider. This is what I'm going to do. And this is my potential.
I would agree with you on that one. I feel like year 2 for me as well with the FS3 team on the Kawasaki. I felt like I was almost in that spot as well. You know, I think we were 3rd person directly into the showdown. As you said, I think I was 19. No, it was a 20. Yeah, it must have been, was I 19? No, I was 20 years old, I think.
Yeah. Did you get confirmed at Cadwell?
Cadwell, yeah. So I was it was about a month before my 20th birthday. Yeah, 21st birthday. So yeah, it was an exciting year that year. And I think I had 5 podiums that year as well. It was all going in the right direction. And, you know, I got my Moto2 contract to go up the next year, done a couple of wild cards as well. And yeah, I felt like at that point that I belonged as a British Superbike rider. And had I done a year 3 there, I feel like it could have been, you know, pretty good, pretty exciting. But I do feel like that 2022 year was special, you know, with Brad doing what he was doing then. And, you know, Kyle was there always at the front. And, you know, I struggle to remember who else. I mean, there's always a load of them that were up the front. And
Glenn and Tommy.
Yeah, Glenn, Tommy, to never discuss.
Christian, I think, was chipping away, and he was up there as well.
Yeah, there was loads of guys that were just there consistently. My teammate Lee Jackson, you know, at that time, you know, there was loads of us week in, week out that were just at the front. And it was a great year for me. I was 20 years old. I was on my 2nd season of Superbikes, and I felt like I was, you know, competitive with the best of them at most weekends. And yeah, obviously last year we struggled a bit with injury. You know, a few of those were, you know, a few of them were my fault. A few of them were out with my control. And, you know, it was a tough season. It was every time I came back, I felt like I tried to bounce back, and then I get knocked back even more. And when I came back, so it was tough. But as you said, year 3 is almost feeling like this year. It's, I'm kind of in the same headspace as what I was in 2022, but with a lot more knowledge of like just understanding, maturity, just a lot more things in general. I've grown as a person. You know, I'm a 2 or 3 years older now, so it's all just kind of growing. You know, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with the team, with the bike, and I just feel happy, to be honest. I feel like I'm just in a bit of a sweet spot.
It's still only 23. So 24, you know, 6 weeks or so, whatever it is. But still, he's only 23 as we sit here now. It's a great position to be in. And I think whatever happened in the decisions that you've made over the last 2 years, I don't think you would change them looking back, because it's part of life's rich tapestry, and you have an opportunity, you take it. You have an opportunity, you take it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But every decision that you've made has led to this point now. And this now, you can see the smile on your face, and it's brilliant to see it, because you probably at this point, and we've known each other a little while now, the most comfortable and confident that I've seen you since 2022.
I feel relaxed. I don't feel like I've got to go out and prove myself every weekend, because I feel like if I just relax into it and do the work that we've been doing, it comes itself. You know, as long as I'm hitting my markers and I'm riding the way that I need to ride, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm feeling good on the bike, I'm happy with the team, I'm just feeling comfortable. You know, not comfortable, because you never want to say you're comfortable, but I just feel relaxed in the environment.
Relax is a better word, yeah.
Relaxed in the environment I'm in. I don't, you know, it's all kind of working. You know, as long as we're ticking the boxes of what we need to do, the results are coming, and it's feeling like we're hitting the marks that we need to hit. So for me, it's like I don't need to I don't need to ride it with my skin. I don't need to think outside the box. I need to do what we've been doing and just work on being better every weekend. When I get home, when I'm going training, it's working on being a bit better every day. And that's just, you know, that's kind of what I'm trying to do at the minute.
How the results up to this point now, as we sit here on Friday morning at Brands Hatch, are you surprised by the results that you've had with the team in the Ducati to this point?
Honestly, yes and no.
Okay.
I feel like the podiums were, you know, I came into the season riding probably the best I've ridden in a long time. It didn't show that in testing, as I've already explained. Yep. So Alton Park, I always knew was never going to be the best round for me. Probably the worst round I could probably start the season with, just because of the I don't know, it's just the way it is with me. And going into Donington, I knew it could be fairly competitive. I knew it could be there or thereabouts. I maybe didn't expect to get a podium straight away at Donington, but I thought I could be in the battle for them. So to be where we are now, I'm pleasantly surprised, but equally, it wasn't something that I thought was unobtainable. You know, I knew we could do it. I knew as a team, I've got the crew around me to give me the package I need. And as I said, I'm fit and healthy again. I've been working hard. I've been training hard. And I feel like I'm riding quite well for my standards. You know, I feel like I'm back in a spot where I'm happy with my riding. So those things is in a combination are always pretty good. And, you know, for me, I feel like that's kind of where I needed to be. And Knockhill, I always would have put pressure on myself to get podiums. I wasn't expecting a win. I didn't, you know, put that pressure on myself to win. But to have stopped Bradley's winning streak, I was very happy with that. And to have done it in front of, again, some soaked home fans, I was happy to give them something to go home happy about.
It's a great thing. And what was your lap time on the Sunday afternoon? Was it a 51.1 or something like that in the wet?
It's just ridiculous. Like for me, someone who's grown up at Knockhill my whole life and seen lap times over the years, and to go to all the club meetings, I just go to the club meetings and do tyre warmers and stands and swap wheels for my mates. To do a 51.1 in soaking wet conditions for me is just kind of mind-boggling. Like to everybody watching a 51.1, it's just a wet lap time to everybody else. But to me, seeing that over the years, I remember my first weekend on a 600. I think I won 3 of the races. My best lap time was a 51.2 in the bone dry. So it was like at a club meeting, it was just like I've gone quicker in the wet on a superbike than what I did my first weekend on a 600. So it's just a bit nuts, really.
To have the crowd there, to have that, to cap that third race off, and then to get, despite what Brad had done by equaling Shakey's record in race 2 of eight in a row. I think he won 8 in a row, hadn't he? To go to take the win in race 3, but then also to get the back page of MCN. That was like cracking. Big props to Michael Hallam for the photo as well. Big up Michael Hallam for the photo. Friend of the show, a good friend of yours now as well, doing some work with you. That was a lovely little round off for the weekend, I thought, because the focus has been on Brad most of the season, but then for you to get the back page splash, that's not easy to say, that just rounded the weekend off nice. It's like, Rory, this is it. You are a contender. You're here. You're 12 points behind Kyle in the championship. You're third overall, courtesy of having two second places versus Leon with a win and a third. That consistency now to take you forward, it's not a bad position to be in, is it, at this point in the championship?
I think if you told me at the beginning of the year, going into round 5, I'd be third in the championship with 5 podiums, I'd have been pretty happy. If we put it that way, that would have been above my expectations for the season so far. It's it's good. It's nice to see that's the way it's going, but honestly, it's what the Taz boys deserve. They've had a tough few years, and to finally be giving them the results, Philip and Steve and Hector as well, they've all put a lot of effort into making this Ducati thing happen. And John and Jackie from Cheshire Mouldings and Dale from Milwaukee, they've all, from behind the scenes, they've all put a lot into it to make this season happen and make it possible. So, to reward them with that at this point in the season, I'm very happy with. And I think you were there at the launch at the NEC where Philip said, was it 5 podiums or 5 wins? I can't quite remember. So yeah, that's the target. That's what,
five podiums, I think he was. Yeah, then even Philip he's been around in this game 25 years. He wouldn't put pressure on you for 5 wins on a bike that you'd not ridden before.
Yeah, well,
so 5 podiums, and here we are.
Keeping the boss happy, and hopefully we can keep that run of things on the go. But hey, it's a long seagoing. We'll see what's happening.
This is exactly what I was going to say.
We'll keep working at it, and every weekend we'll just reset. We'll come back to it with the same attitude. It's going to be a new track. Thruxton's the next weekend. Obviously, maybe not the track that suits Ducati the most, but we'll go into it open-minded, and we'll just work through what we've got and see where we end up with it. It's going to be difficult, I think, but at the same time, it might not be. So we'll just we'll go there. We'll do what we can do, and what will be will be.
A beautiful way to move straight into the patrons. Thank you, Rory. It's absolute pleasure. I can't believe we haven't done this. It's just ridiculous.
It's been going for a long time, isn't it?
It is. We've only ever done the NEC ones, haven't we? Quick 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there.
I think my first one was a Jack Nixon.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Why is this? Oh, you're not kidding. They've turned the Wi-Fi off. That's ridiculous.
Oh, Starlink's been going down.
Yeah, I just noticed that. That's all right. Good. Because I did this and I couldn't open it with Jonathan in Yamaha Hospitality, but thankfully we can. So I don't check our Patreon questions before I ask them.
Okay.
So they literally just come straight out because it's not fair. They've said thank you to our patrons who help us out every month, and they get the opportunity to ask questions of our guests before we sit down with them. So first up, Simon Breeze. What is your best memory from Moto2? And what have you taken away from that paddock to develop yourself in any way?
My best memory of Moto2 was probably getting points at Phillip Island. It was the craziest conditions that I think I'd ever raced in. It was just nuts. The wind was, I think, 50 or 60 miles an hour. The wind was literally, the rain, it was horizontal. And when I thought they were going to cancel it, they sent us out onto the grid. But I got 12th place in that race. I got some Grand Prix points, some World Championship points, which for me, I'll always hold high. I've got the helmet that I used at that race and a helmet cube at the shop, labelled. I wrote on the back of it, so I knew at the time which helmet it was. And that for me was probably one of my best moments. And what I'll take out of Moto2, I think it's... don't trust anybody. Contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. And just keep working hard. The people that believe in you will always believe in you. And the people that don't, won't.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Simon, for that one. Andy Dickinson. Hi, Rory. Apart from sitting opposite Dave right now, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
Highlight of my career so far. I think probably my best moment of the career is winning the British Supersport title in the way that I did. Yeah, that was probably just one of my best seasons, I would say, to date. I jumped on the bike, I clicked with it instantly, I felt at home straight away, and it was with Robin Appleyard and the guys at the Appleyard Macadam team. It was just it was a match made in heaven. From the first exit of the first test on it, I've still got that in my mind at Monte Blanco coming out of turn 1 and just feeling what a proper Supersport bike was like. I think that whole season for me, 2020, even though it was a COVID year, was probably one of the years I'll hold highest in my memories at this point.
So I think what maybe some people don't realise that haven't followed your career quite closely until you got into Superbikes. it wasn't an easy path to get to that macadam ride. I think there was a little bit of help from Chris Walker in Stock 6.
In Supersport, Chris gave me he gave me a spare bike for Supersport, basically. So we used it as a parts bike for the year. And that was 2019. Me and my dad were on our own team, and it was like, it was scraping the barrel in a big way. You know, we were like, usually in Supersport, you're 6 sets of tires a weekend. That's your allocation. We'd use 3 and then reuse that next 3 for the following weekend. It was, money was tight that year. And to be fair, we wouldn't have been able to finish the season if it wasn't for Robin Appleyard. He actually picked up our tyre bill from, I think, Assen onwards, because Assen was going to be our last round of the year. Yeah. We'd done a crank when we built our first engine. Our engine builder run a crank on the motor, and we had to then replace that. So that was like about £2,500 out of our budget for the year just for our spare motor. And that was, in theory, our tyre bill for the last 3 or 4 rounds. So yeah, it wasn't easy that year before, but we got a podium, and that's what put me onto the Appleyard gig, and we agreed to that. We didn't have the money that Robin was asking for the ride at the time when we shook his hand, but we made it happen that winter, and we knocked on every door we could knock on, and I think that ride is what gave me that step up and kind of gave me my name that I've got now.
It's important to put across that none of this is easy.
No.
None of this is easy. It looks great now in BSB, in a great team, on a great looking bike, but the hard yards behind it, they are a big part of what makes you who you are now. The relationship with your dad, Mike, and everything that's brought you to this point.
As much as it was great, like having me and my dad doing all this stuff, and the memories me and my dad have from it was great, but working with your dad 9 to 5, although he'll never say I was working 9 to 5. And to be fair, it was probably more like a 10 to about 7 job. It was, you worked Monday to the Wednesday night, you pack up Wednesday night, go to the race meeting. Me and Dad would run the bike with a friend of ours, Baz, over the weekends, another friend of ours, Paul Taylor. We'd run it over the weekend, be back home Sunday night, back in the workshop Monday afternoon, and do the same. It would be just rinse, repeat, you know. It would be Monday to the Wednesday, away racing. And me and my dad were just like, we were banging heads all the time, because it was living at home, working with him in the workshop, going racing with him. There was never any time apart, and racing that year was stressful. The money was tight. We did everything we could with a very limited budget. And in all honesty, I'm very fortunate my dad is my dad, because he's so knowledgeable in building bikes and running bikes that it kind of made it possible, because there's no way we could have afforded to have kind of paid a team to run us at that point.
And now he can relax on a weekend.
Yeah, he can. I think he
whittles around on his push bike.
I think he left home at about 7 o'clock last night and got down here about 4 o'clock this morning, because he worked all day yesterday.
There's the commitment still there, isn't it?
Yeah, he loves it. He loves it.
I think we've all had shit journeys down to Brands Hatch this weekend.
Yes.
You were stuck Wednesday night. It took us 6 hours today, and yeah, no, it's just not been great at all. Andy also goes on to ask, where's been the favourite place to race?
Favourite place to race, I would say, would be Japan in terms of the place itself. Yeah. I love Japan. Favourite circuit I've raced would probably be Jerez. I think it's just one of the best tracks on the planet. Maybe equal to Knockhill.
Stop the presses. Stop the presses. It's weird because it's not as free flowing. It's not an Assen. It's not a Donington Park. But a lot of pure riders really enjoy Jerez. It's strange that, because it's got a bit of everything, hasn't it?
It's just a great track. I want to take my 250 there and ride it over the winter. I think that's my plan. Me and Kyle, maybe.
So from your point of view on your Moto2 bike or whatever great bike you've ridden through there, those last 3 rights before you finish the lap, they look amazing to ride.
So fast.
Yeah.
The front's on the move into the first one. They're pretty scary, to be honest, and but it is a good end to the lap, I must say.
And his final question, does he put 3 in for this one? Pineapple or never pineapple on a pizza?
Well, I don't eat fruit, so no pineapple.
Don't put pineapple on a pizza. Stick it in the comments below. Pineapple on a pizza? Absolutely not. It's just a vehicle to carry meat and cheese. That's the only way I look at it. I know you margarita.
Margarita with chicken. That's me. That's my Luigi's Pizzeria order, that one.
Go, give him a shout again.
Yeah. My mate Ben, his partner Dommy, got a pizza shop off at home in Dundee. So Luigi's Pizzeria, if you're up in that part of the world, it's pretty good.
And if I'm ever up there, I expect a discount for that.
Thursdays to Saturdays are open.
There you go. I don't mind. We'll throw that in, mate.
Yeah.
It's fine. The T-shirts as well.
Yeah.
Rebecca Hornby. First of all, I'd like to thank Rory for some amazing racing this year, and I definitely think he's a championship contender. You definitely have Knockhill running through your veins, and riding in wet conditions clearly doesn't faze you. As a fellow Scot who's also very used to rain, I'd like to ask if you feel you have an advantage on wet weekends in BSB, and how does wet conditions affect your thoughts for the race?
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for your belief. And honestly, when it comes to riding in the wet, maybe it is a thing because we're Scottish, but really the weather isn't that much different up there. If you race club meetings in England, you're going to get wet weekends, you're going to get dry weekends. You race club meetings in Scotland, you'll get wet weekends, you'll get dry weekends. I'm not really that bothered by the rain. I don't know if it's because we've grown up at Knockhill, which is quite a grippy track, and it's pretty decent in the wet, but it doesn't really put me up nor down. You know, if it's wet for a weekend, fine. If it's dry for a weekend, fine. If it rains 10 minutes before the race, I'm all right with that. It doesn't really bother me. I'm happy with finding the grip in the wet, and you know, it's a fine line, but yeah, it doesn't really faze me, to be honest. I don't know what it is. It's probably more a mindset thing. I think if you have a string of bad wet races, that's when you start losing your confidence. But if you're just doing a load of wet laps and you're feeling all right there, then I think that's when it goes all right.
But also trying to control the controllables rather than the uncontrollables as well.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's the same for everybody. Let's just deal with it the way we deal with it.
You've just got to find grip. You've either got grip or you don't have grip, and you just got to hope that you do.
It's always a hope that you've got the grip. Rebecca, thank you for that. Mick Strickland, congratulations on the last round's results at home turf at Knockhill. It certainly looked like you were enjoying yourself in all the different conditions across the weekend. How have you found the Ducati in BSB compared to other rides over previous seasons?
I find the Ducati very, very, I don't know if user-friendly is the right word, but it's rideable. You know, it's a nice package to ride. It does kick and it does spin, and you know, it can make itself difficult, but in terms of feedback and how the bike is, I feel very comfortable on it. I feel like I've gelled on it quite quickly. We had to do a few things with the ergonomics of it. I had to get a tank pad on it to make it fit me a bit better, but other than that, it's been kind of just jump on it and go. I felt quite comfortable. I felt good on it, and the BMW was on a fine edge. You know, it was working until it wasn't. And the Kawasaki, I would, with no disrespect to it, I almost felt like it was a bit like an armchair. It was a little bit lazier. You know, it felt a bit more compliant, forgiving. Whereas the Ducati just feels a little bit more like a race bike.
I thought that before the start, when we found out that you were going on to the Ducati this year. When you look at how the BMW was last year, like I say, it was pin sharp, it was on a knife edge.
Yes.
But looking what Glenn could do on the Ducati, he could move around on it, he could muscle it around, and it was still compliant. That was another one of the points that we made on the podcast with Steve Day. It's like, that will suit you better because you can move around on it more. You feel a bit more free on the Ducati compared to the BM. Is that a fair observation?
I don't know. On the BMW, I could kind of put it wherever I wanted, and I was quite happy to send it into a corner on the lock stops, like what you see Storms doing now. Yeah. It kind of just, it gives that feeling that you can kind of put it wherever you want.
Cool.
It's more just the fact that when you're on the limit, there's no margin with it.
Right.
It's either spot on,
yeah, and
before you know it, it's chucked you off, and you don't really know why. It's just like, it's fine until it's not. Whereas the Ducati, you kind of have like it's almost a softer kind of crest to when you're on the limit. It's not such a pinpoint, like it's not such a sharp kind of, when you're on the limit, sometimes you're fine, and then on a BMW, you weren't. Whereas Ducati is like, you're fine. It'll kind of tell you that you're in a danger zone, and you'll either be, okay, I'll come back, or it'll like, you know, it gives you a bit of warning. You kind of know where you're at with it. Whereas, yeah, the BM was just a bit more kind of on the edge, a bit more like the Kawasaki in the way it was quite kind of forgiving and compliant.
Yeah.
But it's not that compliant, if you know what I mean, in terms of the chassis is a lot stiffer,
yeah,
and the way the bike needs to be ridden is a lot different.
That makes more sense. How does Rory think the introduction of another Ducati team next year will impact on the series? Will it be at the expense of privateer teams, or are Ducati supportive to get as many of their bikes into BSB? That's a left field question.
That is a left field question. A little bit political, I feel. In all honesty, I don't think it'll make a whole lot of difference. Ducati in general, apart from providing the bikes, they've not really given us any, like in terms of the factory, haven't really given us much kind of direction with it. And they've told us roughly This is one end of your range and this is the other end of the range. Grab something in the middle and go with that. And they haven't really given us a massive amount. So, it's still, there's no factory teams in BSB as such. Some people have got access to better parts, maybe. They've got better contacts to get nicer stuff from. But really, the privateer teams are just operating on a lower budget. So it's no different to a privateer team getting a massive cash injection. I don't think it's, I think it'll be interesting. With Foggy running the team, it's certainly going to bring some excitement to it, just with having Carl back in the paddock, it'll make things exciting. And in terms of affecting other privateer teams, I don't think it will. It's just going to add another couple of bikes onto the grid, and from that, it'll be what it'll be.
Perfect. Thank you, Mick. Going on to Chris Turner, we've inadvertently answered this question already. What's the main difference between the BMW and the Ducati? You look so much more comfortable on the Ducati like you did on the Kawasaki.
I honestly just don't think people saw me. I didn't get enough time on the BMW to look comfortable on it. And when I felt comfortable on it, it was Knockhill. And that was when things were going to start to click. We got to Snetterton, felt all right on it, and then obviously it just went in the wrong direction. Navarra was quite good for us. I felt quite comfortable on it there, and it was our first weekend on it. But yeah, the Ducati...
Podium contention at Navarra, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were thereabouts, but I crashed in testing because it was on a knife. I'm starting to realise now that it was kind of on a knife edge, and it just fapped me, and my arm was like a child's leg. It was just, I had no elbow anymore. So yeah, it was just the Ducati, just as I said, it lends itself to, it gives you a little bit more warning when you're closer to the limit, whereas the BMW didn't. And I think it just inspires a bit more confidence because you know where the bike is at a lot more of the time.
Perfect. Thank you for that one, Chris. And two finally from Craig Lowe. Are you hoping for a future crack at the GP paddock, or is Superbikes, British or world, where you feel the future lies?
It's a good question, that, because it is something that I have thought about, kind of just not directly, but inadvertently, just kind of had it in my mind. And I would go back to Grand Prix if the right opportunity arose. I wouldn't rush to go back in the same situation, that's for sure. If the World Superbike opportunity, if the World Superbike paddock presented itself as an opportunity, it's definitely something that I would go towards. And again, it's like what you see with Brad and Taz. You've got to be on the right machinery. Ryan's went there with a proven team on a proven bike, and Ryan is a good rider, and he's showing what British Superbike riders can do. Even though we're halfway through the season, it's like he's starting to really make progress. He was in the top 10 at Donington. It's the first track he's actually been to on that bike prior to riding that bike. So, it's showing that I think BSB riders can prove that can be a good direction to go in, and given the right opportunities that they can be competitive. But yeah, at the end of the day, money talks, and I'm certainly not made of money. So if the right opportunity comes along, I'll take it. If it doesn't, then I'll just work with what I've got, and we'll make sure we're doing the best with what we have.
And finally, I think we covered this one slightly as well. What's been your most overall enjoyable season so far, and why?
Yeah, I would say 2020 has been my most enjoyable season. I would also say 2022 with FS3 was a great year. I had such a good relationship with my crew chief, Matt Llewellyn, at that time. We worked really well together, and his wife Kirsty was in the team as well, and his son Jimbo. So it was a real kind of family affair. My mum and dad weren't really coming to the racing at that point, just because of dad having to work a lot at home and keep the shop alive. And my mum doesn't really like bikes that much, so I almost felt like I was part of the Llewellyn family when I was down at the racing, and that was a really nice season for me. I felt really at home then. And I'd say 2022 and 2020, when I won British Supersport and my second season in Superbikes, were probably my favourite 2 seasons I've had to date. Apart from this one, I'm really enjoying myself now. I feel like I'm in a good spot. I do really love my crew in the garage. It's like going in to see them. It's just like going in to see the family. It's just nice. There's no, as you said, there's no egos in there. Everybody knows their job. We've got Lee and Buckle and the Spanners. I
forgot Buckle.
Yeah, they do.
Got to give Buckle a mention.
Got to give Buckle a mention. They do a great job. It's like no doubt in my mind when I jump on the bike that I know it's going to be right. And Matt is just learning Motec so quickly and doing an excellent job of it. Coming from Morelli in the Moto2 Championship, I didn't mention it, but Matt was Augusto Fernandez's electronics engineer when he won the Moto2 world title, and he's worked with Pedro Acosta there as well, and he was Remy Gardner's crew chief at Tech 3 many years ago. He was Jake Dixon's crew chief and electronics engineer at Petronas and Moto2. So the guys I've got in my garage have got a wealth of experience, and it's honestly great being there. And even on the other side of the box, we all get on really well. We sit and have dinner all together, and it doesn't matter if I'm sat with my guys or if I'm sat with Eduardo's guys. It's a good environment. It's a good feeling, and I'm very fortunate to have that in the team, and it is something I look for, but you can look for it and it sometimes doesn't go to plan, but yeah, very fortunate to have the crew that I've got around me.
Rory, thank you so much for sitting with us today. You've got a busy weekend ahead of you. Congratulations on the results so far. Continued success as the season continues, and let's see where we are come back here middle of October.
Cheers, Dave.
But ladies and gentlemen, it's Rory Skinner.
Well, a massive thanks to Rory for his time, and also big thanks as always to the AJN Steelstock Kawasaki team for the loan of their office in the hospitality unit. It makes a great place to record. So Darren Fry, thank you, mate. Much appreciated. For those of you wondering about the Patreon questions, the link is in the description below. So if you want to sign up as a patron to get a chance to ask questions of our guest, the link is right there, along with our social media and merchandise links as well. Next week, well, it's a toss-up between a successful Honda rider at the TT from this year or our youngest ever world Superbike champion. We're not quite sure just yet, but it'll be one of the two, I'm pretty sure. Thanks as always for watching, and until next week, please do look after yourself. Bye-bye.